I said, are you ready? Let's get ready to suck it!
Welcome everyone to the very first episode of League World Order. I am one of your co-hosts, Dean Messiter, aka the Roast Man, aka Roasty. You may know me from some of my social media pages, the NRL Roasts. And we are here tonight talking a little bit of wrestling and a little bit of NRL, mix the two together, and we have a great combination. I'm joined by a great man in Curtis Woodward. Let us hear, Curtis, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself, mate.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And it's an absolute honour to be part of rugby league podcast history in Australia with a great bloke like yourself, who is the king of rugby league Instagram, the posts, just like that. Something funny's up within 2 seconds. So riding your coattails, mate, all the way to the big leagues. But no, in all seriousness, it's awesome to talk footy, but also do it in a very different way. And I think that's what's I think a few other people out there might have had the same idea and that never get off the ground. But there's so many people out there, mate, that you know, of course, that there's always an old school wrestling gif or a meme or someone's talking about old school wrestling in some way. So we're going to try to link the two together and talk some shit about old pro wrestling, some current rugby league events, and we'll try to mash it all together and entertain the great people out there.
Yeah, I know you're very old school. You love the old school wrestling. And for anyone listening, we are going to be talking mostly that old school, that, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. I say wrestling, it's WWE, WWF, WCW, some of those old ones. I know you're not big on AEW or anything like that, any of the sort of new ones, not too much into it. But we understand they're out there and there's some great wrestlers. So we're not going to say we're not going to touch on them, but it is mostly going to be focused on that old school WCW, WWE, and all those great things that we grew up on, and that's what we know. So we're going to stick with that and go from there. But mate, when you got in contact with me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought of doing a wrestling podcast?" and I was like, "You know what? That's a fucking brilliant idea." I was pumped. I was like, "You know what? Like, I've never thought about it, but as soon as you put that idea in my head, it just started ticking over." I was like, man, we could do that. We could nail that. So
there's so much stuff from that can pop in and out of your head at any time. I think that's going to be the best part about this show, is that obviously we're going to have a bit of structure, and we spoke about that before we hit record tonight. But obviously the show could go anywhere with what we talk about and some of the old school stuff. So should be a lot of fun, and I hope everyone out there enjoys it. And I'm sure you'll go through all the socials later on. So if people want to get involved, they can obviously be part of that conversation and be part of the show as we go along through episodes through 2022 and hopefully beyond.
I couldn't believe, like, when it's always sort of been a bit of a part of my pages, the social media posts that I do, but I've never really taken notice of how much there is that combination of wrestling. People just love it, and yeah. I've been doing it a lot. Like, I just do my score updates and things like that, just mixing it up with some wrestling posts, and people just froth over it. They love it.
Absolutely.
It's massive. So
it's cool to talk about it now. When I was in high school, some people would really give it to you and say some really impolitically correct things at the time if they weren't into the wrestling. But now I think it's cool to have that old school kind of, that wrestling chat and talk about all the old times. So
yeah, it's really cut through into the mainstream. So
absolutely.
But mate, give us a little bit of history about I suppose your wrestling history. How did you get into it? How did you stumble across the great art of pro wrestling?
You know what it was? My stepdad, and it won't take too long, but my stepdad, he works at Sony Music in the city, the record label, and he's constantly bringing home all these different things. So I think it might have been early 90s. He brought home a stack of WWF pay-per-views on VHS. And Coliseum home video. And the first thing I think I remember seeing was Bret the Hitman Hart coming down the aisle, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I watched it, and slowly through the 90s, I kind of turned into a bit more of a WCW fan. I remember being at high school in year 7 in 1999, and all the other blokes are talking about Kurt Angle winning the WWF title. And I'm like, hang on, he's not champion. Scott Steiner or Booker T's champion over in WCW. So from there, I kind of had to become a bit of a history buff on the other side. But yeah, it was Bret Hart just walking down that aisle with the pink lights and all the fans going mad, and him heading his glasses over to that kid in the front row.
Yeah,
you kind of just get hooked on it. And obviously, back in the day, those were larger than life, and the colours coming through the screen, it was completely different to anything I'd seen as a kid. So yeah, from there, I was hooked on it. What about yourself? Something similar, or
mate? Yeah. So when I was a little kid, like obviously we didn't have pay TV or anything like that, so it was hard to watch. But I remember my nan bringing home some magazines, and we used to have these thumb wrestlers, like Macho Man and Hulk Hogan and all the real old school ones. And we used to, so we used to do the thumb wrestling. And my nan, if there was a magazine or something along those lines that would show some wrestling, she'd get it for me. And and then mid-90s, growing up in high school, it was the same. Like people, never really got around it, and you were sort of ostracized for watching it a little bit. But I moved around a fair bit when I was a kid, and moved at the start of high school, met some new mates, and they were into it. So I was like, bang, we would meet up every Tuesday, Wednesday night when Raw was on. I was a huge WWE fan. Mate had a Nintendo 64, and we used to play those games, and we'd all meet up on a Tuesday, Wednesday night when it was on, back on Fox Sports, I think it was on. And
right.
If we couldn't make it,
was Andy Raymond the host? Was he like the pre-Raw host?
Yeah. And actually, I've chatted to him. We'll have to get him on. Because he loves it. He
loves it. Yeah.
And we just meet up and watch it and talk about. We jump off the roofs onto mattresses and break some bones and have some fun and pay-per-views, WrestleManias, all that sort of stuff. We'd skip school because it was always on a Monday. So we, go to school and then wait till mum left and come home and chuck it on pay TV. So, and just grew up on it and go and watch. We'd have to wait sometimes before we had pay TV, we'd go to the like Video Easy and hire the like you said, the Coliseum home videos, the In Your House, all those sort of old ones.
Beware of Dog and crap like that. And did you ever go to the cinemas?
No.
Did you ever watch a pay-per-view at the cinemas? A lot of cinemas used to carry them.
Yeah. No, it'd been country town. Like we got movies a month after releases, so we weren't that lucky. But that would have been a good experience watching a pay-per-view in a cinema.
Yeah. No, well, it was cool, and it's funny how you mentioned jig in school. 2004, I was in year 12, and half of my grade and half of my brother's grade in year 11 didn't show up for the Monday WrestleMania 20 at MSG. And my mum got about 5 phone calls from different staff at the school, said, all right, is this bloke here? Is he? And mum's like, yes, they're all here. They're watching WrestleMania. So yeah, it was kind of like the hub in it. And it was it's completely different to now, but I guess that's why we're doing this show.
100%. But mate, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit of footy then. What footy club do you support?
Well, if we did this show a couple of weeks ago, I would sheepishly say the West Tigers, but we're going for the Crown Boys. We're going for September football. West Tigers, mate. So growing up in Campbelltown, originally a Magpie, but now a West Tigers supporter. A little bit hard going for the team sometimes, which I'm sure you can appreciate, particularly too when, half the time you're writing freelance, articles for different websites and stuff, and you've got to be a little bit opinionated on the side. So sometimes one-eyed West Tigers fans may look at you and say, well, you don't really like the club. You're always bagging them, but it comes from a good place. So yeah, Campbelltown boy, now a West Tigers fan. And if we win this weekend, it'll be 3 in a row. And like I said, I'll be putting some coin on at the TAB. Something. We must be still paying a pretty good price to get to the final 8 at the end of the year. So yeah, we'll see how we go. But I can see a Perth Reds jersey behind you. Don't tell me you're an old Perth Reds fan. That's Super League too.
It is Super League. It's probably blasphemy. That's
rare, mate.
It is rare. That's the reason I've got it. But no, I didn't mind the Perth and Western Reds. But I think it's fate that we've started this podcast this week because I'm a Dragons supporter. So you will not be going 3 in a row this week. We will be. We're putting it all on the line.
Hang on. So why do you go for the Dragons?
Yeah, my old man was a Dragon, so basically forced upon me. But I did have a choice. Like the granddad, he followed the Bulldogs, But yeah, I jumped on them around that 92, 93 era when they made those back-to-back grand finals. I remember watching Tina Turner up on the stage, and Scott Goulet, he came to my school. He ran a clinic for me, and so when I saw him go back and play for the Dragons, I was like, bang, I love this guy. He was tall too. He was big. For me, he was larger than life. One of those. We talk about wrestlers. He was huge. So watching him run around, I was like, no, I'm following the Dragons. And then back-to-back grand final losses, and then 96 grand final loss, 99 grand final loss. So I felt like I did, I had no luck, but yeah, no, it was Dad followed him, so I just want to follow along with the old man. My older brother, and my mum were Manly fans, so that there was no way I was jumping on that train. But no, it was that's how I jumped on, and stuck with them ever since, even through the merger and things like that. I got that jersey because it was rare, but when the Perth Reds came in, or Western Reds came in, I just love the idea of expansion. I love the idea of being over in Perth, and just this whole, there's going to be teams all over. I was bought into, caught up in that, I suppose. And I just, I sort of gravitated towards them a little bit. Still love the Dragons, but I wasn't jumping off, but it was like, oh, wow, this Perth team. I remember Mark Geyer over there and that sort of stuff. So I like them and follow them a little bit, but I was always Dragons, stuck solid with it.
It's funny too, because I say I was a Campbelltown boy, but before that, I was from 0 to 5 or 6 or whatever. Grew up and lived in Hurstville for a few years, and all my family lived over in Mortdale and Cogra and all that stuff. So theoretically, I probably should be a Dragons fan as well, but thank God I'm not now. But it's just funny how it all works out at the end, eh?
Mate, you won't be saying that on Sunday, but anyway. But hey, we've talked a bit of wrestling, we've talked a bit of footy. Now let's combine the both. If you could link your team to a wrestler, who would you link your team to?
This was the hardest one when you sent through the run sheet today, because, like I said, if there are West Tigers fans listening, I had to write a little blurb under it to explain why. I'm going to say not the Black Heart, but the Heart of Hearts version of Owen Hart.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So didn't always win, but everyone loved him. Yep. So even when he was a bad guy, going up against his brother and all that kind of stuff in the mid-90s, and he had the fake broken arm, and he'd win matches by taking the cast off and hitting people over the head. People kind of love that, the old school wrestling about it. It's like, there was something always funny about him, but he was such a good wrestler. And I'm going to use that same kind of terminology a bit later with another bloke called Kurt Angle, who he was so good at the wrestling part of it that he could get away with being a little bit sillier.
Yep.
And I think even as a bad guy through those 90s against his big brother, Brett, I would say the West Tigers are most like Owen Hart, because they may not always win, but everyone's got a bit of a soft spot for him. So I'll go with Owen Hart.
Don't mind that, mate.
It's all right. That's the best I could come up with.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's something a little bit different. I wanted to sort of give the listeners a bit of an insight into, who we follow and who we sort of likened it to. But, mate, mine, being a Dragons fan, a mixture of, and you would know this, a mixture of two clubs brought together. And I thought this guy, he had a few different personalities, and his most popular was made up of a few, and that was Mankind, old Mick Foley.
Oh,
he had
Dude Love,
Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, and all these things combined to make sort of Mankind and the character that he was. I was like, I just think, those two characters of Illawarra and St. George coming together to make this monster.
Here's a good one for you then. Which version of Mick Foley do the Dragons need this weekend to beat Owen Hart? So do you need the crazy Cactus Jack that punched on with Terry Funk in those matches in Japan, or do you reckon a Dude Love or someone like that will be enough to beat us?
No, I think Mankind, when he was up against Hell in a Cell, Undertaker, when he was just crazy, nothing would stop him.
Yeah.
He just come back for more. And I think, because you guys are going to put up a fight on Sunday, and I've said this on a couple of other things, it is going to be a bit of a dogfight. I'm really looking forward to, and I joke and say it's the game of the round, but it really is. There's two informed clubs coming together, which everyone had written us off. They'd written you off after 5 rounds. I just think it's going to be a blockbuster. But yeah, I think
and you beat the Roosters on Anzac Day,
on Anzac Day, it's huge. That's huge.
So one of our, as usual, one of our fan bases are going to be left frothing at the mouth at one of our teams losing on the weekend, whether it's the Dragons getting done or Ben Hunt not going for field goal when he should, or Luke Brooks doing this or doing that. One of these teams is going to feel that pain that they've had for most of the year. While one of these other teams, the opposition, they're going to shoot off and another victory and go off to next week. So
they're going to be 3 wins in a row. It's going to be massive for the club that wins this one. So yeah, I think to get the win, they need to go a bit crazy over you guys, and I think that maybe what was it 98 Mankind up against Taker. So
we just need to win by a point, mate. That's all we need.
True.
Every week, 1 point.
Yeah. Actually, check that on. We do a betting podcast. Well, how much for the West Tigers to win by 1 point again? I was paying $29.
Ooh.
I like the idea of like extra time. If there's going to be extra time, I reckon that it'll be pretty close.
Oh look, if it's a sunny day down in Wollongong, which it usually is, mate, you can't beat Sunday afternoon at Wollongong. And well, I guess you could almost call them derby teams because they're only separated on the map per se when you look at Wollongong and Campbelltown by a national park going down Mount Ousley. So in a way, it is a bit of a derby game. But look, it's an old chestnut, but I think footy will be the winner. And good luck to both teams.
We've got Owen Hart coming up against Mankind on Sunday.
That would mean Mankind would win that.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed.
Mate, let's get into some more wrestling and NRL combos. Now, the NRL, we have the Immortals concept. Now, give us a little bit of history on who would you induct. Give us your top 5 or 4 or however many you've got. Wrestling Immortals. Who are your favourite wrestlers of all time? Who are you going to put on your Mount Rushmore style thing? But we're going to link it to the NRL Immortals.
Yeah, so I'll go through my 5, but then I'll only give reason on 2 of them because they're actually different. 2 of those are different to yours. So we've got 3 of the same. So Steve Austin, Ric Flair, Randy Savage, and here's 2 that I've gone different to you, and I'll leave those other 2 for you to announce. But I've gone Hulk Hogan. Now, Hulk Hogan is it's hard to keep him out of a top 5 of the greatest wrestlers of all time if you're just looking at how much money he made over how many decades, how powerful he was backstage, all that kind of stuff. If you want to talk about technical wrestling, then he's probably not in the top 50 wrestlers of all time. What did he have? He hulked up and done a leg drop, but he sold tickets, and he did it for years. So I'll go Hogan in the top 5 just purely from a booking stance. And the other one, which is, I wouldn't say left field, but I think in 20 years, we will look at this guy even more of a spotlight than we do now. He's a gold medalist. It's Kurt Angle. So I've taken Kurt Angle purely for the sense of, and I think Vince McMahon, I suppose we'll say it the American way, Vince McMahon, he loved a guy that could work up and down a roster over an extended period of time. So Angle could be your champion for 6 months. And the big names, the big draws like Austin, Rock, Undertaker, those guys, they've got to have the other guy to wrestle in the ring, someone to draw with. And I think Angle, when he was champion, he could do it as a good guy or bad guy.
Yep.
But then you could slip him back down the card and have him mid-card. You could have him, I remember one night in his prime in 2000, he actually opened SummerSlam against Rey Mysterio, and it was the match of the night.
It was, yeah.
So I mean, look, he just ticks all the boxes. And like I said about Owen Hart, he was such a good wrestler that he could get away with doing the stupid stuff, the milk and the little cowboy hats and the kumbaya singing backstage. So they're my 5. I'll let you explain the other ones, but my 5 are Austin, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and the Olympic hero, Kurt Angle.
Yeah, the 3 that we had the same. So Ric Flair, Macho Man, and Steve Austin. So Ric Flair, undeniably one of the GOATs, 16-time world champion, wrestled over 40 decades and 4 decades. About 40.
He's not that old.
No, Jesus. He looks it sometimes, but mate, and just how he kept on going. He could main event from not the mid 70s to the mid 2000s sort of thing.
Yeah,
So,
it really did. Yeah.
you can't leave him off, and his catchphrases, his promos were just spot on almost every single time. Randy Savage, a guy that I just grew up almost idolizing, the Mega Powers with Hulk Hogan, and just his whole persona, Miss Elizabeth, everything. It was sort of what I grew up on, and I just loved it. So I had to leave him in, had to put him in there. Steve Austin, you spoke about like Hulk Hogan, and what he did, how much money he made and everything, and all the kids that he brought in. And I think Steve Austin, what he did for WWF during that period of going head to head with WCW, he was integral in winning that war for them.
For sure.
And if you ask anyone this day, like especially our age, I suppose, who's your top wrestler, I would say more than half of them would say him.
And the Austin pop, the crowd pop that no one else can get. That happened a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, that was, and still doing that. That was magical. I had goosebumps watching that. But that pop, that when that glass breaks, and his promos, he just maybe a little bit I suppose his only thing a little bit sometimes repetitive, but he would still get that crowd reaction. The crowd would just love him. So that was the three that we went over. But my other two were Triple H. He's probably my favorite wrestler of all time. Speak of guys who, again, like could just do it over a long period of time, and also could do it as a good guy. He could be the top face, and he could be the top heel. He was always better as a heel. I loved him as a heel, but if need be, he could flick that switch and go from being the good guy to being the bad guy, and do them both to perfection. I thought. Everyone sort of rids me when I say it, because like behind the scenes, he's obviously married the boss's daughter and risen up the ranks, and he buries other people and all that sort of stuff. But he got the crowd. You can't fake getting over with the crowd, right? And he did it, and he was the best at it for a long period of time. His feud with The Rock over decades was probably some of the highlights. But yeah, he's just I loved him.
I loved him in Evolution.
Yep,
in Evolution as the leader. I mean that was the Triple H he always wanted to be.
Yeah,
I think that's why he brought Ric Flair into the group as well. He loved that Four Horsemen thing, and I think if you asked him, you'd say, what era did you enjoy the most? He probably loved all of it, but he'd probably, that Evolution stuff, I'm sure he's that's close to his heart.
And even look at him now, like what he's doing for NXT. I know we're not too up to date with some of the stuff, but he wants to see everyone shine, and what NXT is doing, they're saying is mostly because of what he's done behind the scenes. So he cares about the business. He's a very like a wrestling guy, like he's.
I think the best thing about him retiring and not being able to wrestle himself full time anymore is that now it's his job to get other people over.
Yep.
So now he can't get himself over anymore. Now he's like, right, well, I know how to do it. I'm going to help other people out. So 100%. I think he's had a few health issues recently. He's had a heart. He's had a pacemaker put in. I think he's retired.
Yeah, he's definitely retired. And even like when he came out on WrestleMania, he didn't make it about himself, which a lot of people thought he did. Like he would have. But he came out and just said, this is the start of WrestleMania, and just left his boots there and walked off. He didn't make it about him or anything like that. So, mate, he's there. And the other one is The Undertaker. For me, a guy that, kept the same, like a variation of the same character, but for the period that he did for 30 years is just unbelievable. The matches that he's had at WrestleMania, the streak. I know the last few years of his career, he didn't do that much, but every time he come out, it was just massive. You get goosebumps watching that intro when the bell tolls, all that sort of stuff. His feud with Kane was integral in me, keeping him with wrestling in those late 90s. That was massive with Paul Bearer and just everything that happened around that with the Ministry of Darkness, the feud with Stephanie and Vince, all that sort of stuff. It was just, for me, it was the peak era of wrestling, and he was integral in it. So, yeah, that's my five. So we've got the same: Flair, Savage, and Steve Austin, and my two separate you were Triple H and Taker. So,
yeah, can't argue with any of them. You truly can't. You really can't. And that's the best part about it is everyone's got different opinions, and I'm sure there's people we've forgotten that people are going to be able to tweet us or send through on Instagram or whatever it might be. And say, hey, you forgot this person. Like, by all means, send them through because
let us know.
Like Bret Hart, I was going to have Bret Hart instead of Savage, which might have, you might have blown up a bit, but that's the whole thing. It's just opinions, isn't it? And all those guys have done so much for different generations as well.
I think like probably the biggest one was that I'd left off was Hulk Hogan, and a lot of people would say Hulk Hogan is wrestling with Hulkamania and what he did for WrestleMania when it first started and things like that. But for me, it's different. Like when I first got into wrestling, he wasn't in it too much because of the steroids thing and all that we didn't know about back then, like because we didn't have the newspapers and all the backstage info and all that. So it was just like who's on TV, and it was. But I still remember, watching him in movies, and we'll get onto that a bit later on with all the movies that he made and TV shows and things like that. But he wasn't just I know he brought a lot of people in, and he made a lot of money and main evented and sold pay-per-views and all that sort of stuff. But for me, he just wasn't integral into getting me into wrestling. So that's the reason. But hey, if you've got a different top five, if you've got someone else that we've missed that you would throw in, let us know on Twitter at League World Order and Instagram as well. Let us know. Mate, let's get on to the New South Wales fullback debate. A lot of chat about this at the moment. For me, it's Tedesco every day of the week. But some saying Ryan Pappenhausen should get it. He is in great form. But if you were to throw them in a wrestling ring with a stipulation, what type of match would you throw them in to decide who gets this number one jersey?
I didn't have to think about this too much. Well, firstly, I'm going to agree with you and say James Tedesco's got to be there. But for the sake of this argument, Ryan Pappenhausen versus James Tedesco, and I've stolen this from, I can't remember what year it was. If someone out there wants to, if they're listening in, send through to our socials what year it was. It was a pay-per-view main event, WCW Halloween Havoc, and it must have been the mid-90s because it was really cheesy stuff with Hogan as champion. And it was Hogan versus the Giant, who became the Big Show. This is for the WCW World Title on the top of a building in whatever city they were on a helicopter helipad in monster trucks for the world title.
I've never heard of this, really.
No, there was so much weird crap in the mid-90s in WCW.
Yeah.
But for the world title, it was Hulk Hogan versus the Giant, and they were both in monster trucks. And there were long shots. Obviously, it was pre-recorded. There were long shots, and there were kind of like little cameras in the cars. And like there was Hogan, like his monster trucks hulking up, and they're going, he's going to go over the side of the building. If you get a chance, have a look. But that's what I'm going with. A purple monster truck, Ryan Pappenhausen, with blonde streamers coming out of the back of the monster truck. Versus, I don't know, what can we do with Tedesco? Uncle Nick might get him a
big rump, a big back, a big back with his pants half the way down his ass.
With City Ford for Nick Politis on the front of the monster truck.
100%.
So Pappenhausen versus Tedesco in a monster truck battle on top of a building. That's what I'm going with.
As soon as we finish this podcast, I'm researching to try and find out when that was, because I've never heard of that. That's crazy.
The Giant was part of the Dungeon of Doom, and it was basically all these monsters led by Kevin Sullivan was his name, the former ex-husband of Chris Benoit's future wife, Nancy. So there was all these guys coming out. There was a guy called the Yeti.
Came
out to fight Hulk Hogan.
The Mummy as well?
That was the Mummy. That was. So there was the Yeti, the Mummy.
They had some weird gimmicks, and like, I remember like cross promotions, which we're going to get onto with the movie review, but cross promotions with RoboCop. Back in the 90s.
RoboCop actually walked down the ring to help Sting.
Yeah,
but it took so long for the guy to walk down. It was like 10 minutes. Terrible. It's cheesy, man. You've got to watch it.
No wonder they folded. But for me, there are so many different types of matches you could throw them in. Hell in a Cell. I remember talking about cheesy matches. The WWE had just as many. Bra and panties match. They had pig in mud matches. Had pink slip on a pole match. I think whoever got the pink slip got to keep their job, and crazy matches. But I'm going old school. I'm going very vanilla here. I just think they just jump in a ladder match. Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon. What was that? Was that SummerSlam? I think.
Oh, their first one.
Series.
I think their first time might have been early WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden, maybe. And I think they only used one ladder for the whole match, which was kind of broke the mold. And, you could be right, but it was early 90s.
Yeah, it was like 95. Actually, I was looking it up before, and interestingly, Bret Hart, he took credit for it because he wrestled, I think Shawn Michaels or someone on a house show in a ladder match. So no one had ever seen it. Vince McMahon didn't like it. He didn't like the idea. They did a house show in the early 90s. Then a couple of years later, Razor and Shawn Michaels, who they say had was the first one. It technically wasn't, but it was probably the most famous one. But I'm going just a ladder match. Just chuck that number 1 jersey up on up above the ring, get a ladder in there, and let them battle it out. I think we would see some magic.
You say yours is vanilla, but I reckon if I had to pick which one would sell more tickets, a ladder match between Pappenhausen and Tedesco makes a bit more sense than a monster truck on top of a building.
I was going to say, sure, a monster truck on top of a building is not going to sell pay-per-view. Mate, come on.
No way.
Don't know if you know the audience this day and age, but it'd be good to see. I think it'd be a bit of fun. Chuck them in a ring, see what happens. They got
big motors. They're quick. Yep. They probably could sell. It makes more sense than mine. Let's just leave it at that.
But yeah, if just straight footy talk, if you're talking Pappy over Tedesco, get your head read because Tedesco should be there every day of the week. I love Pappy in the 14 jersey. Don't get me wrong. I think he should be playing Origin, but chuck him in the 14 and for a couple of years before Tedesco starts going really downhill maybe. But he's not even playing Tedesco, that bad,
No, but Tedesco last year, I think Tom Trbojevic had the season of his life. Tedesco had to play a different role at the Roosters last year, and he's still changing his game with the young halves the Roosters still have. I know Keary's there, but Sam Walker's there. So Tedesco certainly had to change the way he plays as a fullback. So maybe our expectations are, well, Tedesco's not running 300 metres and scoring 3 tries and 5 line breaks, but he's just as integral to Trent Robinson's squad that he has this year. So
100%, yeah.
And you put Tedesco in that blue squad, he's going to kill him. Pappenhausen will play Origin at some part in the season, in the series. That's just the nature of the beast now. You have 23, 24 players that will get a jersey. He'll be there at some point, and he will potentially on his own win a game through the series. That's how good he's going. But, yeah, anyone that reckons Pappenhausen should be there in the starting side ahead of Tedesco, you're right. They've got rocks in their head. And,
You're talking about a guy that's won 3 man of the matches in the last 4 series. He's won a man of the series as well. So, he's a proven winner. You just don't dump him. And I think you put him in there. Club form's different to your Origin. And that's one thing that Queensland's done so well over the years is they'll just put the right players in the right spot. And for me, Tedesco in that State of Origin squad is the number 1. He should be the first picked.
Isn't he the captain as well?
As well, yeah. So
well, there you go. He's picked. He's in.
100%. Mate, I've got a little bit of I've stolen this idea, so I will admit that I saw it mentioned, and I just want to maybe highlight it because I haven't seen it mentioned since the start of the season. But it's an intercontinental title idea for the rugby league. Now, we have a champion at the end of the year, and we wait all year to find out who that champion is. So if we're talking championships in WWE, you have the championship, the main championship, then you have the Intercontinental Championship, which is sort of second level. What I want to bring that into the NRL, and how we do that is we have the champion, whoever they play in week 1. That's the Intercontinental Championship title match. Now, if they win that, they continue on until they lose a match. So you look at this year, the Panthers are undefeated, so they're still currently the Intercontinental Champions. But every week they have a championship match, which will be this week they come up against my mind's gone blank. Gold Coast, right? More than likely will win that, so they'll continue on as Intercontinental Champions. So whoever upsets them gets that Intercontinental Championship. That team then goes on and defends it each week until they lose, so on. Now, it's ended up the last few years that the teams that have won the grand final have ultimately ended up with that Intercontinental Championship throughout the year. But it just changes every, get around that middle of the season, you're looking at, a team will upset a team and take that Intercontinental Championship, then play another team, they'll lose that, and so on. And I just think it gives a little bit of something for this page in particular to run throughout the year. that we'll keep an eye on who is going to be playing the IC title every week, and post it up if someone happens to upset the Panthers, and then follow along who they play. So just something we'll be doing throughout the year, throughout the podcast and on our socials. So keep an eye out for that one.
I'm just looking at their draw too real quickly, Dano. They got the Gold Coast this week, which let's just say that's a Sunday night heat, little warm-up match. They'll win that. They got Parramatta next week, Friday night, on pay-per-view, 7:55. Yeah, okay, no way out, leading into WrestleMania. Round 10 against the Melbourne Storm.
Magic round.
Magic weekend as well.
Saturday night.
WrestleMania.
It is WrestleMania. It is all leading up to that. So
that's it. Fingers crossed they win for the next couple of weeks.
Just something to look forward to and keep an eye out on the socials. That's what we'll be doing all year. So, but mate, I put up a little post earlier today. One of our first posts on socials. Actually, I'll just go back on Instagram. Now, we started our Instagram page, League World Order. So if you want to check it out, go and follow us. Now, I posted up a reel, which was the girl getting smashed at the Gold Coast Titans game by the security guard. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
Just posted it up. Didn't think anything of it. When normally you start a Instagram account, takes a while for you to build up, takes a while for you to get some likes and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, with the roast, I'm sharing it through there, and people are loving this sort of content. So we've got a few followers from that. But this got posted up. This is our second only post. Now, I'll give you an example. Our first post got 29 likes. Another couple got a few hundred, which was pretty good. They were shared through the roast, which obviously helps. This post is now sitting on 183,482 likes.
Woo!
That is a big
word. That's Space Mountain.
That is massive. I don't know what's happened, and it just keeps on going and going and going. I
think it's because people in other countries are now picking it up.
Yeah,
and they're just sharing and. So, I mean, who doesn't love a bit of audio over the top? And look, 100%.
The best part so that's what I did just to explain it. Like we had that hit, which was massive. Like I posted it just on the socials, just by itself, and it went big. But what we did with this one was put WWE commentary over the top. It was Spear with an extra whack in there. So, and it probably doesn't help that it's on a woman. Now I understand, we don't want to see violence against women. I understand that, but if you run on the field, you're making a choice that you could be hurting someone. So the security guard's got to do his job, which I've always defended. And it looked bad, but
she came out the next day and said, "No, I deserve that. I deserve whatever happens to me." So she's a good sport. But look, if you run on the field, doesn't matter who you are, the security guards, they're gonna have a good time.
But I just can't believe how much traction this one video has got. It has just gone mental. So
yeah.
Keep an eye on the socials, guys. If you've got an idea for us as well, send it in. We love taking fan suggestions. But yeah, keep an eye on the socials for some NRL WWE content. But yeah, I asked a question earlier today, which was, who is the top heel and top face of the NRL right now? Now, our wrestling fans will know what a heel and a face is. The heel's the bad guy and the face is the good guy. So for all the NRL guys that are new, guys and girls that are new to the wrestling and they want to know, so heel, bad guy, face, good guy. Who is your top heel and top face of the NRL right now, mate?
I don't know if you can hear that. That's my Aussie Bulldog running through the backyard barking. But anyway, look, I'm going to go top heel, and it's a little bit unwarranted. But look, everyone might be a little bit jealous of him at the moment. I'm going to go the Panthers as the top heel purely because of the crowd Viking clap on the weekend. That is heelish behaviour, 100%. And they love it.
Yep.
They're into it. Good on them. So I'm not mad at them. It's a bit of fun, but yeah, definitely top heels, the Panthers. And top face this week. Now, I know you said on Twitter as well in that post that it could be a player or team. I've gone Jackson Hastings / West Tigers.
Yep.
So we may not win another game for the rest of the year. That's just how we think. I know we're playing the Dragons this weekend, so it might be 3. Then we may not win another one. But Jackson Hastings, that's my face. He's come into the club at a really, really tough time, and he's helped the team across the line 2 weeks in a row. I know he kicked the field goal 2 weeks ago, but he had some really good things to say about Luke Brooks, his coach, after the game. So I'll give it to Jackson Hastings as the top face for this week because we may not get another top face for the rest of the year. So let's enjoy it, West Tigers fans.
You don't want to see a heel turn anytime soon.
Oh, we could, mate. And that could be Justin Pascoe in a number of weeks. So,
mate, it's interesting because growing up as a Dragons fan, the Broncos were a huge heel for me in the 90s. And then sort of late 2000s, early 2010s, it was Melbourne. And obviously Manly's been a heel for, everyone. Everyone seems to hate Manly for some reason. I didn't really grow up that way with some family following them, but I'm loving like how Melbourne have turned around from being one of the biggest heels to now being one of the biggest faces, and a lot of their the players have left from a lot of people cite the salary cap and things from the late 2000s as reasons why they hate them, and obviously success. People don't like success in opposition teams, but a lot of those players and admin and stuff have left the club, and now they've got guys like Ryan Pappenhausen, the Cheese, Justin Olam, Jerome Hughes, Christian Welsh. If he's not one of the nicest guys in rugby league, I don't know who is. And I think it's just amazing how they've turned it around. Their interview style, whenever they're getting a question from Fox, they'll say, "Oh yeah, thanks, Braith," and then they'll start answering it. I just think that's really a lot of media training and respect built into them, but it's just amazing how they've turned that around. So I respect to them. But yeah, let's I thought I'd go through and just have a quick look at some of the responses. There was a good one on Twitter actually. Let me just go back and find it here. So we threw it out on all socials. I love this one from Karate Warriors, he's been a big help actually. At ME_DC, he's helped me with some video stuff. But he's actually thrown in the commentators. Heel is Danny Weidler, and the face is Andrew Voss, which I love that.
Go with that. Yep. Voss is like that early 90s WWF guy. Big smile on his face, high five in the crowd. Yep. Danny Weidler's a bit more dark, kind of WCW manager of some sort. Good on you, Danny.
Or even like the guy. Remember when they're having the war and WCW and WWF and the commentator for WCW would come out and say what would happen on Raw?
Oh, that was Bischoff. That was the guy that ran the place.
No, it wasn't Bischoff. That
or
was
Schiavone. Tony
Schiavone.
Schiavone.
Tony Schiavone, I think. He was that guy. He's like, oh, that'll put bums on seats. And everyone.
Yeah, well, I think that night he said, "Don't go over and watch." But Mick Foley's about to win their world title, so about 3 million people flicked over.
Good on you, Tony. Did himself any favors. He also put up heel Cameron Smith, face Cooper Cronk.
Oh,
another good one. Which I think we can lead into and say what we'd love to do is put together a card, not tonight, but we'll put together down the track. We'll put together a wrestling card of good guys versus bad guys, maybe over the years in the NRL.
Or there's plenty of good guys and bad guys in rugby league, mate.
Yep. Biggest heel, Matt Lodge, Russell Crowe, Babyface, Victor the Inflictor, Radley. I think Victor would be more like a Steve Austin, sort of like an anti-hero, yeah?
Yeah, he'd be kind of that grey area. I think Vince Russo would have loved him in about 1999.
Yep. Would you? Someone said Gutho is a heel for sure. Would you?
Oh, 100%. And he's not even King. He's not even King Gutho. He lost King of the Ring to Philip Sammy a couple of weeks ago. You remember the Titans winger danced over the top of him?
Yes.
He hasn't even got his crown back.
I love that. He had a good run in with Dane Laurie too.
Yeah. Not a happy boy when they lose.
No. At Wilbur_learns, he said face West Tigers, so you'll love that. The struggling baby face turned good. And he's had the heel, which is the Sydney Roosters, Rich Jerks, he said. He said a tweener, South Sydney, used to be working class team, now billionaires plaything. But he threw in this one, which I loved, Jobber, the Canterbury Bulldogs.
Oh, yeah, that's fair enough.
And who we got here? Pete Mason, at Pete Mason. Luke Brooks, recently turned babyface. I don't mind him. Like, he cut a good promo. He said, I don't care what anyone says about me. They're not paying my bills, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so, it took him 12 years to say something. Good on him.
And Uncle Nick Politis, the Vince McMahon of the NRL, as the heel.
More like Ted DiBiase. The Ted DiBiase, the $1 billion man.
Yeah, that would be him. I love the chatter they got there. Someone come in and said Brooks is getting a push. So yeah,
Yeah.
We're
Getting
wrestling,
real underground now, aren't we?
love it. But it's great. Yeah, so jump on and give us a mention. Let us know what you think, and we'll be dropping some stuff for this podcast over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, mate, we're going to finish off with just letting everyone know about the movie review. So what we're going to do each week, we're going to look back. There have been some absolute classics. There have been some absolute stinkers. And there have been a lot of stuff in between for wrestling movies. So what we're going to look at is wrestling movies where the wrestler is either the main star or the main theme is wrestling, right? There's obviously wrestling movies with a few wrestlers have had cameos in movies. We're not going to really look at them. It's where they're the main, first, second, or third sort of star of the movie, where they get a lot of scenes, and do a movie review. Now, I've picked one for next week. I think it's probably one you might be familiar with, being a WCW guy. It was, but I don't think you've seen it. It was Ready to Rumble.
No, I haven't.
So, if you knew about this one, when David Arquette won the world title in 2000, it was all due to this movie that they'd made, and they did a cross promotion in WCW. I remember it was like one of the worst decisions in wrestling history, making him world champion. But it was to promote this movie. Now, the movie's about a couple of wrestling fans traveling across country to see one of their favorite wrestlers of all time, and how he sort of falls from grace, and then they try and bring him back up. It sort of mixes the whole wrestling, reality and the behind the scenes sort of stuff, and brings it into real life. And it's quite a, I'll say, terrible movie, but it's a great one to start off with, because it's built around wrestling. It is the main focus of it is wrestling, and it has a bunch of superstars in it. It has Macho Man Randy Savage. John Cena has a little cameo behind the scenes before he was even wrestled a match. Diamond Dallas Page is one of the main guys. Sting, all those WCW, or not all of them, but some of those big WCW superstars. So we'll go over it and watch that this week, and do a review on that next week. So if you want to get involved, go home, watch that. Don't know where you'll find it. Maybe you'll have to hire it or whatever, but go home, try and find it, and then come back next week and listen to the review, and we'll go from there and see how we go. See what you think about it.
Worst comes to worst, I'm sure there's like a horrible version of it on YouTube somewhere where half the screen's cut out or something. So.
Or it's in reverse, and all you have to do is change the settings, or it's in 2 times speed and you just have to halve it or whatever.
It'll be there. But mate, that's I think that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Yeah, we've gone longer than what we said we would too. Time flies, eh? So
it does when we get chatting. It's good.
And I'm sure, hopefully, a lot of people out there enjoyed the show. And like you said, Dean, if people have got some ideas for different concepts and stuff like that for us to talk about, by all means, please let us know.
We had plenty of positive feedback, even with just a few social posts, that everyone loved the concept. Like you said, it is unique. I looked around. I can't see anyone doing a mixture of NRL and wrestling. So if you enjoy it, this is the podcast for you. Tell your friends. Give us a rating as well. Jump on that podcast app and give us a rating. It'll help the show out. Send us a message. Share our posts. It always helps just to get the word out there. But every 2 weeks, Ben and Curtis are going to be jumping on, having a bit of chat about what's happening in the NRL world. Link it to some WWE or WCW wrestling references, and have some fun. So join along, share our stuff, and enjoy. Thanks, Curtis, mate, and we'll talk again in a couple of weeks, mate.
Oh, yeah.